This is, we would suggest, the best view in Sydney.
I think it's one of the best in the world.
Sydney Harbour is our front yard. It's beautiful here. I love the community and the village feel. Adam walks to work over the bridge most days.
I lived in Newcastle. I grew up in the same house my whole life till I was 23, and that's when I moved to Sydney. This unit had been in the family that whole time. My grandfather and his brothers owned it from the 60s.
His mother inherited the apartment, and we're lucky enough to live here. Each of Adam's siblings has lived here at one time or another. I used to tell people we have a $1 billion view and a $5 kitchen. The oven was so old it was still in Fahrenheit. Adam's a geek, but he's a geek who likes to have a good time too. He's fun. Everything is a mission with him.
Wanted to work in IT, and obviously Sydney is a much better place to do that than Newcastle just because of the size and the companies. So I'd been eyeing off living in this place. So I said to my mum, I'm going to move to Sydney and live in the unit, take care of the unit for you. And there was a little bit of apprehension on her side, but I got it over the line.
You wouldn't know it was the same building.
Amazingly happy, over the moon.
We love having friends over. I've just done a wine course, so I'm really into it, like taking people through the whole tasting thing. Oh, and a Clare Valley Riesling.
Beautiful clean lines with indoor-outdoor flow, indoor-outdoor living. I think it really does capture the essence of Sydney.
It represents such a transformation, such an intervention into something that started from a very low base.
He wanted to be a driving force as part of this project.
It is the prime location in Sydney. It didn't quite have the amenities, so when I moved in 2001, this apartment in summer would absolutely cook.
I think Australian winters are pretty nice in general, but it's cold out inside, and that took me some getting used to.
She said she'd never been as cold as that first winter that she spent in Sydney. And I think because we do have a temperate climate, we don't heat and cool, and we never built buildings really to take advantage of sort of insulation. Over the years, we sort of noticed that we started to get more water coming in as well. The concrete was actually bubbling from where the water was coming in and the paint was chipping away. The actual concrete spandrels underneath the windows are just one single skin. So we've always had moisture problems in the building, so it's always been sort of damp. Be washing down the walls regularly to make sure that we kept the mold at bay. The windows started to leak, so every time we had a storm, we were worried how much water would be coming in.
Like the wind would come through here and the building would kind of rock, and it was really loud. You could hardly sleep at night sometimes for the wind.
Our neighbour upstairs, their front window flooded. They had water just literally pour into the unit during one of these southerly buster storms. Like, it was just pouring down. They had about 2 inches of water on the carpet. And those stories, they were sort of resonated more and more across other owners and other residents within the building. And so every time we had a storm, we knew that we were in for a whole range of issues that we're going to have to deal with, all these extra repairs that would have to be done. It was becoming a real nightmare.
You could do what they have been doing for many, many years, which is just to paint another waterproof coating over the walls, over the roof. But the fact of the matter is that any applied covering like that is really just a Band-Aid solution. It had reached a point where radical intervention was needed.
We've had these problems for the life of the building. These problems are getting worse. You've got investors, you've got owner residents, you've got younger owner residents, older owner residents. People have got different financial situations. So there's all these different scenarios where people are going to have different points of view that they're coming into the process with. The committee was starting to look at putting in another paint the building, replace the windows again. And I started looking at it and thinking, is this actually going to solve our problem? Are we actually spending our money wisely? We haven't really done any proper investigation. Over the years, the committee got smaller, and I'd been interested in actually joining the committee, but I hadn't been able to get elected onto the committee at the time. They were actually very close to signing a contract. Myself and a number of other owners, there was about 6 of us, sort of thought, let's take a breather. And this is hard to do because the water problems were becoming more and more prevalent. And so we actually went to the tribunal at the time, and we had an order placed to stop the contract being signed, because it was that close. It was within a day or a couple of days of the contract being signed. The 4 members on the committee, I think, put their hands up in the air and said, we're not going to progress it. So that led to a spill of the committee, and we then got 9 members on the committee, which is the maximum that we could have. We'll go back to the drawing board. To me, this was an opportunity to look at whether we should look at a second life for the building.
You do need someone on the executive committee or the owners corp who's passionate about doing this to their own building, and we can get involved in the early stage and help with cost planning, looking at different engineering options with an architect to see what we can do to really, really better this building and this structure.
And we don't have an option now. Our first meeting, we actually got notified that we had a fire order placed on the building. So we reached out to the architect Vivian Marston. She did the initial work up to development application stage with the council, and then she passed the work on to Paul Birkmeyer and Brent Truesdale.
The vision was to solve the building's problems in an architectural way. Putting what we would call an overclad on the building essentially resolves the leaking problem, but also solves the aesthetic problems of the building, which were quite obvious. It was about giving it some depth, some what we would call modelling in the facade.
At the final stages, you've got to get 75% of the owners to agree to spend the money, to sign the contract and to move forward. There was groups of people in the building that didn't want to spend any money. There was groups that felt the building was amazing and we should invest whatever we can in the building. There was other groups that went, we just need to do whatever the minimum is to get it fixed. Going through this structured process with the architect, the consultants, the engagement, all sort of helped get the majority of owners to the point where they went, we will invest.
We tend to think that we're a little smarter than the average builder. We try to look at alternative solutions, alternative options, not just of construction, but how people can fund their projects, how they can better their buildings, and how they can get a better project out of what was once, say, a pure remedial job, how they can actually, while they're doing the remedial works, uplift their building at the same time. Look, these buildings are always driven by some essential works that were required first, and one of the essential items was the fire system on the building, which was non-compliant to current codes and standards. So the fire system upgrade had to be holistic. It was a whole of building system from roof through the stairwell, through the individual units.
The balconies are supported on steel frames, which then had to be connected into the old steel frame. What we found was that the old steel frame inside the concrete columns was much different to what we thought it was going to be.
There's a lot of engineering challenges when you're working with existing structures. So we don't want to be the type of builder who will just sit there saying, oh, we found an issue, this is a delay to the project until your consultants work it out. We actually develop solutions to the problems as we find them and pitch those to the engineers or the architects and work collaboratively.
One of the big drivers for the other units in the Juliet balconies was to increase the airflow into the units.
Saturday night I had 12 people in here and I had all the windows open and everybody could feel that beautiful cross breeze.
Communication is the critical aspect of any construction project.
My job is to get owners to give access to the builders when it had to be done. We had a site meeting once a week. I also put out newsletters. Owners that don't actually live here would call me. They were very thankful for that.
When you're working in an environment such as Kirribilli, you have to be, or anywhere in Sydney in fact, you have to be good neighbours. We not only try and mitigate the annoyance to the owners of the building and occupiers of the building we're working on, but also to the neighbours as well. And the school across the road, St Aloysius College, We were able to reallocate our teams to other parts of the building, do other quieter activities while they took their exams.
We actually ended up with double glazed windows in the building, which gives us much better thermal characteristics.
The acoustics of the apartments is far improved.
You've then got the cladding, which is separated from the old concrete wall, which gives you an airspace, which means the sun's not directly heating the concrete. For the unit owners at the top, they now have a metre of separation and a colour-bond roof, so that I think people are going to notice a massive difference this summer. Buildcorp provide that management layer, but it's more that overarching responsibility of making sure that our project's completed and our contract is successful. We've had one or two really good storms, and there's not a word about any water coming in.
We've delivered several buildings in Kirribilli, very similar projects with new facades, new balconies, etc. The last two won Master Builder Association Awards, best in class.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
My mum can be very sceptical when you're going into these things, but I think with the results and what she's seen, she's amazed. Everyone we speak to that sees the building, they just can't stop raving about it. It's really good when you take a building that was so bad and then you take it to such a good level.
This sort of project, it turns the owners of the building into the developers, so they not only benefit from the beautification of the building, the added amenities, but they also benefit from the value uplift of their property. Engineering is a wonderful thing, and you can engineer yourself out of any sort of complex situation so long as you've got good bones to the structure.
Well, I just think it looks like a whole new building. It looks like a modern building for this millennium. It's just stunning, and it's a place you can be proud to walk into with convenience to so much that this city has to offer. But now it just looks the part as well.
We were very lucky that we went with Buildcorp.